I can explain.
All right, let's get this over with.
A storm is coming.
Oh, just stop doing that!
Pull!
His passion for the art can become anally retentive.
Kind of makes it, but rip his eyes out! Shoot! Shoot! Shoot!
I think we're gonna need a bigger penguin.
Hang this on your door and no girl will ever enter, I promise you.
That's it. That's it. We're running. Go easy on the face, though. That wants to mount an extra cable A sword. Doesn't look so bad, right?
We're gonna have something. Oh! He's a vampire!
You kill vampires, you don't hate them.
Our pals are never so down, pies!
Okay, I'm out of here.
Okay, so this is a subject that some people have wanted me to address for a while, which is the fall of G4TV, at least on YouTube, because a while back, before G4TV launched on YouTube, I made a video about not sleeping on G4TV, and I had the thumbnail with my favorite two people from G4, which I guess Kevin Pareira would also be a favorite from G4 as well, and that was Adam Sessler and Morgan Webb. This is back in the day when G4TV was actually on the whole G4TV snafu. Let's start from the very top. Now, G4TV was a network popular in like the early 2000s, and as I mentioned, it returned in 2022. I believe that it's a disaster that could have been salvaged. At the point in time when I was going to make this video or do this discussion, I didn't believe it could be salvaged at this very point, but it really could have been saved. It could have been sent on the right path much earlier. The rise of the network as an influential force in gaming media, I would say it was, like I said, it was popular in the early 2000s. I think the channel, if I remember right, because I tried to look it up a little bit, the channel was launched in 2002, and this was before I even discovered it. I think I discovered it like years later, but it really became a destination for gaming nerds, or whatever you want to call them. I think you could say even people that are like big in technology as well at the time. But it eventually went off the air in 2014. The channel was attempted to be revived in, I think, was it 2021? Because I don't remember exactly when they came back, but the attempt ultimately failed. The original reason, the original reason is for money, but the alleged original reason for the network existing was it was supposed to be aimed at a young male audience, of course. And then the irony of this statement coming later. One of the biggest reasons for the failure of the G4 TV revival was I would say the original lack of just basic, solid quality programming. While the network did have some popular shows in the past, like Attack of the Show, X-Play, That's My Baby, the revival failed to come up with some new shows, this one being on YouTube, that could capture the attention of viewers. The network also failed to secure the rights to popular game events, which was weird because one of my favorite commercials was the G4 TV E3 commercial, because it was like,
Live at E3.
Believe it or not, I'm watching E3. I never thought I'd get in so easily. Watching G4 in my beautiful chair. What will I see? Believe it or not, it's E3.
now
biggest, baddest video game expo, live on G4.
I'd say another major reason for the failure for G4TV, or at least on YouTube, it was poor marketing. Despite the channel having a dedicated fan base, really, because I was going to be one of them for sure, or I call myself being one of them, they really failed to generate enough buzz for its return. The network didn't really advertise anything. It could have did a return to a traditional media set. It could have had just like original programming. It didn't have to be anything wild or crazy or over the top or anything. It could have been, it just, when they came back, it really didn't seem natural. A lot of it seemed phony, to tell you the truth. But its marketing campaign on social media was pretty mediocre. And that's another result why many people just weren't even aware that G4 even returned in the first place. They suffered several controversies that I'm pretty sure added to the failure. A lot of people like to say that they're a sole contributor to the failure, but I don't necessarily believe that at all. There's a bunch of other things that go into running a successful business. Even though it was entertainment, it's still business. And then, of course, you've had the Frost controversy and a whole bunch of stuff on that. The media landscape for G4TV has definitely changed since it went off there in 2014, because you have a bunch of services now like Twitch, which is suffering at the moment, and YouTube, which seems to be dominating at the moment. YouTube, I think, is going to damn near just be around forever at this rate, because it's kind of killing everything, but more on that later. Many viewers are turning to these platforms, or have already turned to these platforms, including me, for my gaming content. So additionally, I think the pandemic also accelerated just cutting the cord from TV in general. It was on the way out, and I think the pandemic has made it even harder for just like TV shows to deal with online. G4 has, I think it's like any other station or network, has had its fair share of issues even before YouTube, because back when it was still on TV, the novelty of G4 giving viewers like a glimpse into the video game world, that was starting to be on the way out because of social media, because video game companies were becoming more open to the general public, which has also diminished G4's importance in the first place. And the same way that G4 was, because it's a video game station, or was a video game station, because of that reason, online in and of itself was also more of a young male's party, I guess you could say. Some of the problems for G4, I would say, is a lack of adaptation and just a change to the times and trends. The decline of G4's relevance and viewership, of course, lending itself to that. Towards the latter end of the original G4 TV, it really pains me to say it, but at that point, the only thing that they were even playing, it wasn't even a gaming network anymore. I think they would slide some X-Play in there every once in a while. Maybe some Attack of the Show. I can't remember when Attack of the Show died, but every once in a while they would slide those in to my memory. But it was mostly just, and it's so fucking annoying, it was mostly just cheaters and cops. It's like, what the fuck? How, in what universe does that have anything to do with video games? That's all they did. I don't know what executive decision came out of somebody's ass to decide, like, hey, cheaters, hey, cops. It's like, yes, I want to watch cops 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Are you fucking kidding me? Seriously. Like, I can get the reason that you probably ended up doing that was because of the lack of viewership for your actual video game content, because I don't think it necessarily would be that far of a stretch for a executive to make the decision, I want more viewers so I can get more money. Cops gets a lot of viewers for whatever the hell reason. People really like that nonsense. And we're just going to do that instead. I get that. I get that in full. But why not just because you basically, every business should have a mission statement. And for you to not even talk about video games anymore at that point, you've lost the mission statement. If you've lost your mission statement and your vision and your purpose, then what the fuck are you even doing? Like, Cops definitely isn't or is not related to what I would assume is the original mission statement of G4TV. I mean, G is in the title of it, not C, not cops, not P, police, not cheaters, C, or whatever the hell. It was G, which G obviously stood for video games. Seriously, well, like, what the hell? So the fact that they just ended it with cops and cheaters marathons, yeah, it was a wrap. There was no way. There was no way. So G4 finally died around that time, or at least the mid 2010s. I will say, when G4 did the holiday special and they had damn near the entire cast, like the original most popular cast, come back, and this was including Morgan Webb and definitely Kevin Pareira, and that was really cool to see. Like, it brought back such fond memories when they did all their sketches and stuff back on X-Play. It brought back such like nice memories. It was a simpler time. Was it a good time? Not really. I don't think it's ever been a good time. But it definitely at least brought back fond memories. So after they did that, they started hinting like, hey, we might be coming back. Hey, we might be coming back. Hey, ladies and gents, we might be coming back. And that was extremely hype. And they eventually did come back in 2022 as a YouTube channel. And like I said before, even I made a video and it got some of the best views on this channel at the time. After the failed revival of G4 TV as a cable company, the network shifted its focus online, which was pretty smart if you want to make any kind of revival. Not even necessarily smart, it's just common sense at this point. But especially on YouTube. But the G4 TV YouTube channel, it struggled to gain traction, and there were several reasons for its failure. I would say one of the primary reasons was a lack of consistent content. Like, the channel did have some popular shows that they could have retooled and brought back. They could have asked for feedback. They could have done a number of things to try to retool these brands, these pieces of property from the original network. They could have just redone them, like just do them smartly. Am I saying that the way that I would do it would succeed? I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that. I'm just going to say that there were so many other better ways that they could have went about doing this. Because when G4 TV came back, they had reviews, as you would expect, because X-Play did reviews, shout outs. And the reviews really weren't bad. Tell you the truth, I enjoyed Adam Sessler's reviews, much like I did definitely back in the day, because I lived for Adam's reviews. I really liked Morgan Webb's as well. Granted, I had a, and I'm pretty sure I'm not that different from any other young male back in the day, but I definitely had a crush on Morgan Webb. So for me to say that I still did like Adam's reviews better definitely says something, because I definitely had a huge, massive Morgan Webb bias for sure. And just to reiterate, as I continuously add on to the reasons that I think G4 ultimately died on YouTube, it's the lack of interest due to existing generated stuff that you can find on YouTube and on Twitch, and arguably you can find it on Twitter too. I'd say Facebook as well, but fuck Facebook for obvious reasons. And if they're not obvious, we'll go over those eventually. That's a video that's a long time coming. And the other reason I would say is the absence of the or at least most of the original cast. And I would also say G4's outdated and unnecessary nature as it stood, but that could have been fixed. Anyways, let's go on to some of the controversies. So I already mentioned one controversy, which would be the Alex Mendez stuff, which is, I guess it could be construed as some hypocrisy. I mean, which is fine because that's the way it looks. I hadn't looked into it too much because I'm not too interested in it, just to be 100% honest, but that's the way that came off. The second one would be Adam's Twitter. Now, what you say away from wherever you work, your tweets, your statements, your thoughts, they should be of your own. But I will say, even for me, I'll say some of the stuff that Adam has said, while I completely understand it, some of it was out of pocket. The way that he talked about Republican family members. Now, full transparency, I have typically no beef with anyone. I don't have beef with just regular Republican people. I do have beef with politicians. I have a decent amount of beef with Democratic politicians, but you do those on a scale because not every Democrat is the same. And what I mean is it's a spectrum because you house so many people, like it's the largest party, like it houses so many different people from so many different walks of life that you're going to have a spectrum of types of people in it. There are some really based and really genuine people in it. And there's some, when you get more to the establishment side of it, there's some more, let's say, a dog shit people. But their policies, just going off of actual research, their policies are resoundingly better than Republican, like for sure. My biggest beef comes from Republicans, or at least the political Republican parts, because people that look like me, or I guess with my skin tone and all that other good stuff, people who resemble me tend to have a lower probability of survival and a lower probability of success when Republican politicians have anything to say about it. Like they consistently, when you look at the numbers from around the world, they consistently make survival for people that look like me lower. Like they basically get people that look like me killed. Like I'm just going to say, just call a spade a spade. I'm not going to dance around it. I'm about to say it is what it is. They do. They inadvertently and sometimes directly, they'll go mask off, will fuck us over. Now, they'll fuck over the general populace. That's 100% true. And for the most part, it doesn't really matter how you look. It more so matters how much green that you have. And if you have enough green, that can supersede your skin tone or whatever attributes that you have, how people will perceive you. But when all else is equal on that front, a lot of the policies and the lack of policies, mostly they just do cultural bullshit now. Like if you ask any Republican politician, like name 10 policies that you remember from like let's give you 10 years. Let's give you a massive handicap. The past 10 years, ask them to name 10 policies that has been effective and there's data to prove that it's been effective. Boy, their heads will, they'll do the Windows sign off, like the old Windows XP sign off. Like this shit will go off, like it'll just do nothing because they have nothing. I'm not a fan of the establishment Democrats, but Republicans are just like, they're detrimental to my survival. It is what it is. Like I can easily I can go on all day about that. But the reason that I mention all this is one, so I can be completely transparent. I'm not trying to do the middle of the road bullshit. Like I'm going to be against whoever advocates the least for my survival and my prosperity. I'm going to advocate again, because it's not binary. It's not left or right. It's these people fuck me over the most. These people fuck me over the least. These people fuck me over even less than these, and so on and so forth. You do it on a scale. Whoever advocates for your interest the best, as far as like not screwing over the most amount of people, this includes poverty, healthcare, homelessness, jobs, the environment, because I don't like when my fucking forest is on fire, whatever the case may be, or I have drinking water, because that's going to be a fucking thing. Anyways, that's how you, in my opinion, that's how you should treat politics. So that is my bias. I like data and shit that proves like, hey, this will help the most amount of people and this will fuck over the least amount of people. So that's why I view Republicans the way that I do. And that's probably to a degree the way that Adam does it, but I don't like how he has beef with his like Republican family members. They can probably say some head ass shit, because no human, in my opinion, for the most part, is immune from saying head ass shit, like for sure. But a lot of them, they just, some of it's brainwashing for sure, but some of it's just a genuine different opinion. It may not be a well-researched opinion. More often than not, it isn't, because people don't tend to research things. Some people do. Please believe some people do. Like, they really get into the depths of actual like empirical research, but some people don't. Some people, they'll listen to whatever internet daddy that they pay attention to, and they'll just go along with that and call it a day. Because as much as I've talked to people, I've noticed that if they're political, you can almost tell where they got their talking points from, because it'll sound so familiar. Like, yeah, this sounds like it came from this place. Okay, I know who that is. You've been watching this guy. No, and you've probably been watching this guy too. And more than likely you'll be right, because all the talking points are extremely similar. So I can get to a degree, like, yeah, I'm going to have a disdain for insert like whatever here, like whatever family members here. I totally get it, but you shouldn't tell them to like drink piss and die and all that stuff. Like, that's too much. And I'm vastly younger than Adam Sessler, and I know this. They're just misguided. Like, don't hate them. Like, because they probably, and I'm saying this as somebody, I'm sure the family members he's referring to is voting against my material interest, or at least people that look like me interest. That I'm pretty sure they, just because of the programming that they've gotten from Fox News and all those other places, they've gotten the programming that you're homeless because you're lazy and some dumb shit like that, or you're poor because you're lazy. That's also dumb as hell. They've got that kind of programming, even though it's overwhelmingly stupid and wrong. Like, it's infinitely wrong. You can crush that moronic argument every which way to Sunday. You can absolutely nuke it out of the sky. But they just happen to, that's just what they've been programmed with. Any of us are susceptible to any stupid information like that, because the stupid information is basically for money. Like, I know what time it is. That's another reason I despise the political side of it, or the influencer side of the Republicans, not regular people, because they're just regular people. A lot of them are just trying to live their lives. They just happen to fall down whatever pipeline. Like, they're just normal people. Anybody can end up being a scumbag under the right circumstances, including me. This includes me. I may think what I think now just because of, or really I think the way I think now just because of happened circumstance. Like, I've actively had to be in situations where I had to research like different political issues that people face, that people die over, unfortunately, because of the conditions that they're in. I've had to actually research that, so I know full well about it. And not everybody's had that luxury, because if I didn't, I probably, who knows, I'm pretty sure I would think much differently than I do now. It's just, anybody can be susceptible to really bad information, but you shouldn't hate your family because of that. You shouldn't hate your Republican family because of that. I don't think that that's right in any way, shape, or form. You also shouldn't give up on them too. Like, they're your family. Like, that's all you really have. And even if they weren't your family, say if they were your friends, same thing. Don't give up on them just because they don't think the exact same way as you. They just happen to have worse information than you. Or at least in my regards, they would have worse information, because my head is filled to the brim with this stuff. Like, I wish I could unknow all the stuff that I've had to learn and write out in paper format, like these long essays and all that stuff. Wish I could unlearn it, because the more you know about things, the unhappier you tend to be. But my overall point with this, because I went on a tirade, I apologize, pretty long one, is, yeah, don't hate anyone else just because of the way that they think. You try to come to a general understanding. And I just think, like, whatever Adam's mental state is, because I got love for Adam. Like, I don't hate him. And if you approach him, Adam Sessler, in good faith, you know this man is not like, I want them to die. Like, he's not. It's obvious that's not what's on his mind. What's on his mind, if you research or like look at his Twitter long enough, is there is a bunch of problems in the world. A bunch of easily solvable problems. But this group of people and its ideology is in the way of fixing those problems. So he may hyperfixate and just think about it again and again and again, because it's wild to me, because these problems are easily fixable and they could have been fixed over a decade ago for sure, or honestly decades ago. But that particular ideology is standing in the way, because the way I see it is you get rid of that ideology, that Republican aspect, and then you get rid of the corporate Democrat aspect, and then you're left with like genuine, like, let's help each other, like, let's go forward into the future where everybody prospers instead of just a select wealthy few. That's what I would personally like to see. But unfortunately, they're shitting away, and it's making that to where that doesn't happen. So if he's thinking in those regards, like, you think about it over and over and over and over and over again, it's going to eventually turn into this, I really hate anybody that has this ideology. That's how it is for a lot of issues, or a lot of different groups of people. Like, these people are a certain way, or they think a certain way. So you start to hate, or you start to put the people and the ideology within the same pool. Like, they're one and the same. So because you hate the ideology, you hate the people. And and that includes family. And that's just not the right way to do it. I 100%, like, Adam, I love you, man. I got love for you, but that's not how you should do it. That's not how you should do it. That will only lead to just negativity and probably grief in the not too distant future. And I think that's a really sad way to approach it. When I was younger, I totally got it, because I kind of felt the same way too, because I know what my eyes saw in front of me. It's like, hey, these people don't like me because of the way I look, so I don't like them. I get it, but even me, it's just wild that I get this, and I'm way younger than Sessler. But, it's to each their own. Maybe he's not talked to enough people to understand that, because again, anybody can end up in any situation to where they think a particular way. Like, you're shaped by your environment, whether it be online, whether it be offline. You're shaped by that. So he's probably just shaped by his environment, and he just keeps seeing negative actions, and he just connects them with people, or at least those particular people. So I think that's part of the decline too, because I imagine a good amount of Republican people, or at least who were raised in Republican families, also were a fan of G4. I mean, it's video games. Like, I think video games is a very bipartisan thing. So that could have did it. Is it going to lead to the downfall? Absolutely not. But I'm just trying to think of any particular seemingly important things that would have led to the downfall. The next thing I would say is, and I mentioned this before, but the mediocre content. To add on top of that, I would say the politically correct social justice warrior stance. Don't get me wrong. What's constituted as social justice, and woke for that matter, don't get me wrong, I'm gonna have to get started on that, unfortunately. But what constitutes as social justice warrior and what doesn't, and how the definition is used and perceived, it really varies because it's become more or less a cultural bullshit thing for the past several odd years. I think G4, when they did the politically correct stuff, they overcorrected. It was too much. It's far too much. Another reason for the failure, I would say, is that there was and I kind of mentioned this before, but really to solidify this, there was a massive amount of competition from the actual YouTube creators. There's so many of them. Like there's literally, and I'm one of them technically. There's really thousands of us out here. And the fact that G4 got into the game late, like way late, even in 2022, I think that was a huge problem as far as their actual success. Like the platform has become the home of a ton of successful gaming and pop culture channels with literally millions of subscribers. Damn sure wish I was one of them, but I think that's also part of it. As far as the G4 team, I would say, or at least from my perspective, the talent didn't match the expectations for the budget. The people in charge just didn't seem to know what the hell they were doing. From the host to the management, they weren't good at it. And a lot of the people, I think, weren't a good fit. It's not a stretch to say that everything was mismanaged to a T, because G4TV, when it came back, for it to start late, I think that was still detrimental to them. Even though you can see videos from time to time, if you're in the YouTube space, talking about should you start a YouTube channel and insert year here. And a lot of the times they'll say, oh, well, yes, you absolutely should. Like they're going to say that for years. Should you start one in 2024, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. They're going to more than likely say the same thing about that. And to a degree, I like to believe that that's true. As long as you make content that people actually want to watch for whatever the hell reason, then you should. And even if you don't, really, if it's for yourself, that's fine. You know, just start one because it's free. Just do it. The only thing it's going to cost you is your time. And even with just a phone, you can probably do it. But I think that was a factor. But even regardless of that factor, they had a massive budget, like in the millions, multi-millions budget. You know what I could do with that? Because I'm cheap as hell. I could do so much with that. I'm stretching. My dollars were stretched from here to the Grand Canyon. Like I stretched the crap out of my stuff. I Mr. Krabs my stuff. As long as it works. As long as it works. And people get paid well. That's really it. A good chunk of my budget will just go to really paying people a easily livable wage for what they're worth. But I also think a lot of the people just, like I said, from the management to the host, they just weren't a good fit. And I don't think they found all the proper talent that they needed. And then an example of the budget being grossly misused is they would have like high profile guest people come on, and they reportedly demanded day rates from $25,000 to $30,000. Can you imagine that? Like, I'm sorry, you may be a big multi-million insert YouTuber, influencer. I don't give a damn. I'm not about to sit here and pay you basically a brand new car for you showing up. You're a YouTuber. You're a Twitch streamer. Calm the fuck down. Are you a multi-millionaire? Sure. Whatever. Don't care. I can find more interesting people, more higher quality people, more respectful people, or respectable people for much reasonable prices. Now, I'm still going to pay people easily comfortable, livable wages. I'm not going to have anybody work or do anything for a starvation wage. I refuse. I will never do that. But one appearance for $25,000 to $30,000, no. That's going to be a no for me, dog. But you have like stuffy, dummy executives that don't know what the hell they're doing, getting into positions of power, and they misallocate funds and ultimately screw everything up. The abundance of options available today for gaming media compared to G4's time is just, you really have to be smarter with your money. They had such a big war chest, they easily could have weathered starting later. They could have, but they didn't. They just mismanaged everything. The talent did not match the expectations of the budget. Nothing against the people there, but that's part of what happened to me, I'm sure. For another example was paying Pokimane for simp views. I don't have anything against Pokimane. Blah, blah, blah. Respect the, you know how you always have to say, respect the hustle. I mean, I do respect the hustle, but it's kind of annoying. Like you're just wealthy just because people like, ooh, cute female, ooh, she play game like I do, ooh, like that kind of shit. And nothing against her. I more so blame her viewers than I blame her. Like if I was in her shoes, I would take advantage too, because goddamn, you the way that the world is, you really have to use whatever tools you can to get ahead. And if I had those tools too, for sure I would use them too, because you could be working harder like the rest of us flubs and not have much to show for it. So shit, I get it. But anyways, they spent $20,000 to get Pokimane for one raid, just one. I don't think she's doing a whole lot to where one raid just merits $20,000. Jesus. And they had that type of cash, but they chose to spend it on Pokimane. It's akin to spending, like if you're playing a video game, spending on a potion that has a limited buff time and spend, like strength up or something like that. And it's like, hey, it's great that you did it, but it's like, you didn't have to use it. You spent a ton of money on this for no damn reason. Like it's just not viable long term. It would just bring the simps too and low quality fans. It's just like giveaways. With giveaways are really good for rewarding people that are genuinely interested in your stuff. But as far as like new people, it can bring in new people that happen to be interested in it, and a lot of it can fall off, just like any kind of business where there's a marketing funnel where you bring people into it. But a lot of people will just like enter for the giveaway and be like, well, I didn't win, all right, I'm out. And even if they won, they'd be like, I'm out. And that's more or less, and with giveaways, it's not going to be a fucking $20,000 giveaway. So even with that, it's nowhere near as bad as the Pokimane simp raid. It's just not, it's just low quality fans. It's really stupid. It's like getting sugar instead of protein or vegetables for your channel. Like you need actual protein. You need people that are going to be genuinely interested in what you make to stick around, rather than like, oh, she's popular, let's see if we can get some of her fans. Like that's so very stupid. Another thing of mismanagement is paying for viewers. Like they paid for viewers and they view botted, or at least that's what the receipts say. And I'm really not surprised, because if you're treating it like a business, then you probably will like, well, I want more views mean more advertisers mean more money. And I'm just going to view bot to try to make it look like we have more viewers. It basically, to me, I think they use the social proofing strategy, which social proofing is, let me pretend that I'm more popular than what I actually am. And that's going to make more real people stick around. And that's really what view botting, I would believe, is for. Because I mean, I think the first time I found out about view botting was that old Content Cop video where it showed that Rice Gum was view botting. If you have to remember who the hell Rice Gum is. Yeah, if you have to pay for raids or have to pay for view botting, your content's already not that good. Like, you personally are not that good. If your expectations are thousands of people watching you, then don't pay for view bots and don't pay for sub bots. It's like putting a poster of a brand new shiny car over a busted, beat down hoopty. And that's just not the way to do business. And I think I've mentioned this before, but just to clarify again, most of the original cast didn't return. And you have, it's just G4, when it came back, they just left it as this weird, pseudo, bizarro, unnecessary nature. And then, of course, you got the controversy with Frost, which, man, there's a lot to unpack there.
Sexism in gaming. In joining G4...
This is not where I thought we were going,
I know,
but I'm here.
I had
I'm
no
here.
idea.
I'm listening. Yeah.
In joining G4, I was ecstatic to be part of something that I grew up watching as a child. But every time G4 is brought up in various channels, even in this YouTube channel, we have the chat in front of us. I can see you. Without a doubt, there will be backlash because I'm not as bangable as the previous hosts. It's somehow...
Talk to him, Frost!
It has somehow been expected that you can talk about how much you jerked off to women as a compliment.
That
It's
shit
not
weird.
a compliment.
It's weird.
It's dehumanizing and it's weird. Women do not exist to be nice on the eyes for you. Morgan Webb, Olivia Munn did not exist to be nice on the eyes for you.
I can explain.
The controversy surrounding Frost's rant on sexism in gaming, don't get me wrong, there's some validity to that rant. The way that it was carried out was not good. But criticism of G4's past treatment of female hosts and the impact on it. So to go over that, because I mentioned this earlier, Frost mentioned that Olivia Munn and Morgan Webb, Olivia being the co-host of Attack of the Show back in the day, they weren't there to be easy on the eyes. Well, if you actually look back at the vaults regarding what Olivia Munn and Morgan Webb did, you will easily find that that couldn't be further from the truth. They were there to be easy on the eyes. Now, was it just to be easy on the eyes? No, absolutely not. They had, to me, they had personalities. They just happened to be really attractive. Like, you can have these things coexist within the same person, within the same universe. You can be attractive, be hired to be attractive because they obviously were attractive because they were appealing to a young male audience. I mean, come on, like, that's just what it is. They've even dressed the part. They've even done photo shoots. Olivia Munn has easily done sexually suggestive segments before on Attack of the Show. But they still had personality. It was completely okay. You can be fine with your sexuality. The company can be fine with your sexuality and even try to use it as long as you're in on it and you're not being exploited and you know full well and you're completely fine with it, then who gives a damn? Like, who gives a crap? They were there to be easy on the eyes, but they also, I'm not sure that was going to be in the hiring process, but I would imagine that it is. They also had personality. You can have all these things in the same universe. So not everybody does that. So I get Frost Rant on that, but it's very hypocritical to say that they aren't there to be easy on the eyes and then complain about it because you're not as quote unquote bangable as they are. Again, there's some validity to that, but it's also really dumb. It's super dumb. And like I said, based off of G4's past, it just looks super hypocritical because it is hypocritical. It's extremely hypocritical. Though I get that you should not be defined by your past entirely, and that includes the network. If the network's trying to go into a different avenue and direction, that's completely fine. But yeah, you just have to watch out for the hypocrisy and optics and your aesthetics. You have to pay attention to how you'll be perceived by other people. I mean, that just takes some social awareness. And if you're trying to succeed and thrive, you're going to need some level of social awareness. Anyways, another wild thing past that, and I know she really thought she popped off. She did somewhat. And then, of course, she got gassed up by the Black Hokage and people clapping. And, you know, she was having her moment. She had her soapbox. But it's seriously not the way to go about things at all. If I was in Frog's shoes and I was dealing with chuds online, because everybody, for the most part, has to deal with chuds online. Like, it's just part of the process. People will, for whatever reason, they feel the urge to troll, or something's not going well in their life, so they just want to be crappy to other people for whatever the hell reason. Everybody's got to deal with it. From black people or black creators online having to deal with N-word dick bags, and or females dealing with like sexism or whatever. Everybody has to deal with that stuff. So if I were her, what I would have done is I would have said, you know, I unfortunately have to deal with this because I follow in Morgan Webb and Olivia Munn's footsteps. Like, they came before me. I understand that a lot of them, a lot of what they did could be seen as being objectified, or their, you know, just their sexuality. What I would say if I was Frosk is, I understand that I'm not them, and nostalgia is extremely powerful. So you probably want them before you want me, because people don't like change for whatever reason. They just don't. It makes them uncomfortable. It makes them uneasy. They don't get the nostalgia factor to the fullest that they would like, because I imagine nostalgia is akin to drugs, really, because of the powerful effect that it has on the brain. Nostalgia makes you feel good. It reminds you of a time that felt much simpler for you. So to not have things exactly the same way as it was is going to make you probably be a jackass in one way or another. I totally get that. And yeah, you may want somebody that's quote unquote easy on the eyes, and I happen to not be. And hey, I'm sorry for that. I'm just me. Only thing that I can do for you all is to just be me. I will try my best to be entertaining, to be understanding. Some of the stuff you all have said to me is extremely rude. I don't appreciate it. And I really wish that you would stop, because we're all just trying to make it in this life. We're all just trying to do the best that we can. And as long as I try to keep doing the best for you, I hope that you can respect me enough and try to do the best that you can for me. And that's to not be like a prick to me. It's the same as you. Would you want somebody to be terrible to you all the time, or anonymously or anything? Because granted, they're still going to, a lot of them, or for whatever the case may be, are still going to be jackasses. It's just in people's nature sometimes to do that for whatever environmental issues, whatever life instances that they're going through. They're going to do stuff like that. But, you know, you just make a genuine good faith, like, hey, this, and this. And I'm not really about the being sexualized thing. It's really just not my cup of tea, but I'll try to make up for it in other ways. And yeah, just respect me. I respect you. I mean, unfortunately, some people are not going to buy that, and I have to block you or whatever. If I have to kick you out, so be it. But I will try my best to be absolutely understanding to you, and for you to enjoy yourself. Like, I'm making this content basically just to make others happy, so you can enjoy yourselves, so you can have a refuge from a pretty tumultuous life. That's really part of why I'm here. So I hope we can reach an understanding on that. If you did that instead of because it comes off as self-righteous, if she did that instead of the seemingly optically self-righteous rant, that would have came off immensely better, like worlds better. But she didn't do that. She did the type of pop-off rant that makes you feel good. And I get it. I really, truly get it. She got swept up in the moment, didn't think it through. Hey, that's what happens. But I guarantee if she did that, infinitely better reception, because they got a ton of bad PR after that. Like, even for people that were like bad faith as far as like G4 and the whole SJW culture war bullshit or whatever, if she did that, optically it would be infinitely better, and they would have infinitely less ammo. The bad faith people, they would have infinitely less ammo to use against G4, infinitely less, because it's hard to hate somebody that makes a gesture like that, like completely understanding. And some people probably will try to do that anyways, because, you know, they make money off of that type of shit. But it's infinitely less people that have anything to say. Like, it just diffuses it immensely. But she didn't do that. That's the route that she chose. Another thing that Indiana Black did, which I have to say, Indiana Black is a sick ass name. Can we talk about that? That is a sick name. All right. Anyways, another thing was she mentioned in a post online, which I'm assuming, I think is deleted now, but she mentioned in a post online that she survived major G4 layoffs after, and where I think it was like 20 or 30 people were let go, and she survived it because she wasn't laid off initially. And it was a very dickish thing to do, because what she did was she posted like a meme online about how she survived layoffs. And it's another optics thing. It's pretty fucked up, because other people did not survive. They lost their jobs, like they're unemployed, or they were unemployed, which leads to a very uncertain future for millions of people when they're unemployed. Like, it just sucks, because for a lot of us, unemployment's the difference between having a roof over our head to being homeless, to being able to pay for medical bills, or just straight up dying. Like, it's not a joke, really. That's another reason I have an issue with Republicans. But anyways, back to this. Yeah, she made a meme about it. Like, haha, I survived. And I get the initial, she just doesn't, it feels like she doesn't think before she speaks. Or at least in regards to G4. She didn't think before she spoke, or I guess think before tweeting. And yeah, posting that meme about the layoffs and stuff, it was really out of pocket. It was very shitty. So she got, because people already don't like her for the rant, because it basically seems like she's coming after the few actual viewers that they have that aren't view-botted. So you're attacking what little stock that you have. And even the people that didn't actually do those things, they maybe feel attacked as well, because you're preaching to them rather than doing some kind of understanding. Like, it's just negative all around. But eventually, though, she did get laid off. She was no longer, while G4 was still around online, she was no longer on G4. She did the whole usual thing. She thanked everybody in the esports for her time there and all that other good stuff. But those controversies were contrary to the popular belief online. It was like, oh, Frosk caused G4 to die and all that. Like, nah, hell nah. It's a business. Let's not be stupid. Let's not do this culture war trash, doo-doo, feces nonsense to where you think, oh, social justice, like that stupid nonsense. That's not the only reason, not even close. A lot of it's just poor, just mismanagement overall. That's just what it is. Like, let's not kid ourselves or be stupid little troglodytes about it. But anyways, another thing that I would say too is the weird ass hiring process. So after they shut down, I think they shut down in like October of 2022, maybe October 17th, I think is what I had in mind. Miss Click, for example. And if you don't know who Miss Click is, she's a video game YouTuber, mostly Nintendo, I think, but I think she does like Sony and stuff like that. We'll just call her a video game YouTuber. But anyways, she was auditioning to be on G4, and she was asked like really weird and politically charged questions, because it seemed like G4 was looking for people from the get-go to be like the very stereotypical SJW, to sell political correctness and progressivism, which isn't progressivism to me. That's using progressivism to turn a profit. If they are talking about tens of thousands of people dying each year due to like a lack of universal healthcare coverage, if they aren't talking about stuff like that, then it's not, it ain't progressivism. If it's not talking about fixing the homelessness issue or mass incarceration or pushing fixes to poverty, that shit ain't progressivism. G4 from the beginning thought that being a social justice warrior, to me, it seems like they did that. And that's what a lot of companies do. They do it because they see it as it's going to make them more profitable. And to be fair, you can see why that dumbass term, get woke, go broke statement is often proven to be trash nonsense. The largest load of fecal matter. But the difference is you got to make something that people actually want. Then faux progressivism is just icing on the cake to reach the most amount of people without issue. The channel believed that selling political correctness and progressivism being the way to go is another nail in the coffin, because it wasn't the way to go at all. I think one of the audition questions, which is so weird, but one of the audition questions was, they asked, do they think Batman should be quote unquote canceled? And the auditioners were asked what superhero they would cancel besides Batman. It's like, what the fuck? What? For an interview, let alone audition questions, that's super stupid. Like, it's powerfully stupid. That's insanely stupid. Like, this is just, that's what I was saying earlier. You put in people that don't deserve these places of power and influence in places of power and influence. Some of these people that make these moronic decisions should not have, they shouldn't be nowhere near deciding or making decisions for numerous employees and having a war chest of tens of millions of dollars. Nowhere near. They should have hired my nobody ass. I can almost guarantee you, I can't say definitely, but compared to what G4 limped to the barn with when it came back to YouTube, or it came to YouTube, I would have been infinitely better. And I'm a nobody. But yeah, they did it. They did that nonsense. Yeah, and G4 being marketed towards a younger male demographic, or at least the young males at the time, doing the complete SJW thing, like the phony, like the SJW thing, just the aesthetics part of it, like it was just bad. It's just dumb. It's stupid. I can't stress that enough. But with how that played out, and you know pretty much the end of this story, G4's, like, their relevance declined over time, and they had a few viewers, and eventually that died off too. People started leaving, people getting laid off, just poor content selections. It was a house of cards just waiting to collapse. It could have been salvaged. It could have been salvaged for a decent part of the time, but they just, they let it go to shit. And that's what it did. It just went to shit. And it's really sad, honestly. That's my overall opinion on it. It's exceptionally sad. And I remember hearing, or at least looking at some tweet stuff online, like Gerard, the way that they did it was out of pocket too. The way they just closed down the doors and fired everybody else. Gerard, who was a G4 employee, the completionist, he found out about him being fired. I think, was it over a tweet or was it from a video? But anyways, it was indirectly. Like, they didn't even tell him about it. Like, that's so that's how unprofessional they were. Like, like I said, some high profile creators, they just demanded too much fucking money. And G4 already had like a low viewership. They couldn't swing that. But nevertheless, they tried to swing it anyways. Pretty wild. It's super disappointing. It didn't have to happen. I hate unnecessary bad things happening. It just takes me back to when G4 merged with Tech TV, and they had like screensavers and stuff like that. I was just looking at the old catalogs for them, and a lot of that stuff was so enjoyable, and it seemed really genuine too. That's the kicker. it seemed far more genuine than what it was at this point. And then, God, you had X-Play. X-Play was my baby, man. Damn. Adam and Morgan, like, I would have a bad day or just be sad of just like school related issues, and I would just be sad, and I would just come home and watch X-Play, and it was really fun. Like, they made me laugh. It was so enjoyable, and it just really takes me back. And it was just genuine and fun. It was chill. It almost felt kind of like you were just hanging out. And when I was younger, I didn't feel like I really had many people to hang out with, but I could hang out with them. And it was just really sad. It was really fantastic to see them come back, and it was sad to see them go. Like, the key to making G4 work this time around, as far as YouTube, it would have been to create shows for real people that featured real people, and find a blend that works with YouTube's TOS and their guidelines, which I don't imagine for a corporation that wouldn't be too hard to do, but for some reason they just didn't do it. They just did very generic, easily forgettable content, which, I'll be honest, a lot of that generic forgettable content does tend to work on YouTube, but it didn't work this time around for this particular type of, I think because the audience is more well read because they grew up with G4. So stupid vapid content doesn't work as much for that audience, but that's just my hypothesis. But I would say just making real content would have worked, and not being, or at least, and not having an insanely bloated budget with nonsense that delivers basically no entertainment value. The personality issues should be front and center of the stage, with hosts who are not only knowledgeable and in their respective topics, but also charismatic and relatable to their audience. One possible show format, for example, could be a talk show that discusses gaming news and trends with a rotating panel of hosts who have diverse perspectives and personalities, or sometimes take like viewer calls or something like that. May be able to get some interesting and unique and fun interactions out of that. Another idea could be like a reality show that follows professional gamers as they train and compete in high stakes tournaments, and just kind of make it into this real thing. Like, it could be, there's so many ways to tackle that. Another thing, they could do like street interviews with people and ask them about video games and stuff like that, and have some unique or funny or interesting questions lined up so you can get some funny reactions out of people with this stuff. Like, there's so many things that could have been done to make G4 work, and they just didn't. You could strike the right balance because it seemed like they did want to educate viewers too, which is good. But they could have struck the right balance, or tried to strike the right balance between entertainment and education. They could have made it to where G4 became the stop for people of ages and skill levels. Like, they could have done like tips and tricks and stuff like that. That could be super useful. They could have done all that stuff. They could have technical entertainment. That's a one-stop shop if somebody wants to learn how to do X, Y, and Z for this, and this. And they could have categorized them and indexed them properly. They could be the how-to village or whatever of YouTube as far as like video game stuff or technical issues with laptops or computers. They could have done all that. They could have just become a powerhouse, even though they came late. But they didn't. And it just died. It really died. And it's really sad. And I really didn't want it to fail. It was a huge nostalgia boner for myself. But the lack of nostalgia and the unimpressive content, it's just so many nails in the coffin. Ultimately, G4 was an interesting company, but unfortunately, it became a relic of a different time. It was around at the right time when the gaming industry was sealed up mostly behind closed doors, and you really couldn't see anything outside of E3, which is at the time of this recording is now dead. And the only thing I think you really have left is the Game Awards, the Summer Games Fest, and Tokyo Game Show, which Jeff Keighley definitely built a fucking hustle around it easily. He's like, I know y'all are dying. Let me go ahead and consume. That's exactly what he did. So he's rich now because of that. So that's cool, I guess. But back during this time, like, research showed that video games was a boys' club. There were females for sure that played video games, and it didn't have to be a boys' club. It's just how it was marketed. It's just how the culture leaned. Then you had Frost stupid bangable rant, and then that was very dumb. They did well for a time. X-Play attacked the show Electronic Playground Code Monkeys, which Code Monkeys deserved so much better too. I'm not going to get started on that because that's a whole nother rant in and of itself. Code Monkeys deserved far better. Then eventually, as the internet fired up, G4 started declining, and when it came back, it died a sad, horrible death again. People were hype, and then, yeah. At any rate, I hope y'all definitely learned something from this. If you ever want to start something online, I would say this would be some good lessons that you could get from G4 screwing up. Be genuine. Be understandable. Know that not everybody will like you. There will be points of contention. Try to navigate those the best that you can. Try to reach a genuine understanding. Try to understand that there will be crappy people for whatever reason. A lot of the times people are a victim of whatever environment that they find themselves in, whether they be poor, whether they have a bad family life, whether they have a friends issue, whether they go to a bad school, whatever the case may be. We're not typically born to be little shitheads. More often than not, like, these are learned traits. These are acquired for whatever pain and suffering has befallen someone. It's usually how it is. Don't buy a bunch of needlessly expensive stuff. To start YouTube or start whatever you want to start, try to plan for a shoestring budget. Now, this doesn't mean skimp on things. Like, skimping and surviving on things is two different things. You need to work within reason. Don't buy needless bullshit if you don't need it. Like, don't go through that if you don't have to. I can't stress that enough. Don't try not to be a hypocrite. Always try to be aware of your current actions and your past actions and how they can be perceived over time. I'm not saying to try to walk on eggshells. Be yourself, but just be a mindful version of yourself. And that's it on that, really. If you want to start and do anything, try to make it as if you need to operate on the bare bones. You need to be as efficient as possible. Try to avoid the bells and whistles if you can, because more often than not, they are just that. They're just bells and whistles. And you should keep that in mind in whatever endeavors that you do, and just try to be a genuinely decent person. Try not to hate other people because they're different than you, and try not to hate those people because of what they espouse, because more often than not, they just happen to go down a pipeline that led them to some really stupid thoughts. I think that's a good spot to leave it at.